welcome. Today, this moment in time, we're going to set up some environments, some coding kind of setups that we need to work with when we're dealing with Python. It's not limited to Python, but specifically, we'll be focusing on Python-based setups for your environment. Now, this is kind of like the easiest slash most difficult thing if you don't know where to look and what to consider when you're doing an installation of Python. Um, so the first thing, let's dive into it. The first thing that we want to really go into is open up our environmental variables. So you look up environment or variables, and you open this guy up. Okay. Now in Windows, it's going to basically open up a system properties space. I'm going to go to environmental variables because that's where we're basically going to tell our computer what to look for when running applications. The first thing is just have this open for the moment. We're really going to be focusing on the user variables and the path location. Now, for us too, since we're setting up Python or anything else, of course, when you install it, normally this is done during installation. But what if you have multiple installations and you want to play around with different types of Python versions? This is where it can get a little tricky. The first thing you want to do is essentially download any of the Python, depends on the version. If you're doing AI, I recommend 3.11. It's basically the most compatible one to the current models and the current applications that can run generative AI, whether it's music creation, whether it's, yo, Lugna, what's up, man? Whether it's going to be image creation, just basically using AI. I recommend going into the full list of downloads and getting 311. That's basically where a lot of AI uh, based application can be used. Everything else is just kind of always an update. 312 is good too, but I've noticed AudioCraft, which is an AI music generator, that is basically compatible with 311. That's one of the things. Welcome and uh, see you in a little bit. Um, Let me also change this a bit here. So the first thing is download your Python of choice. Now, where you install it doesn't matter really. So you basically download this installer, you tell it where to install Python, and then it'll configure the system for you. Naturally, I basically install everything on the root directory. So I have actually multiple versions of Python because different Python applications or different Python scripts will require different versions. I most commonly use V11. So how does a computer know which one of these to use based on the setup that we have environmental variables? Well, the first thing you have to think about here is that each one of these Python directories have a python.exe, but they're the same name. Python exe. They're not distinguished by any particular adjustment like Python 3.12, Python 3.11. They just have one Python exe. So that's kind of the confusing part, especially when you have multiple versions on the system itself on which one to run. Well, we can simplify this. In environmental variables, the path is basically the location where your terminal, your program for command prompting, basically the little black box that everyone likes to see nowadays. This is where it's pulling information from. It's going through these directories and saying, what is the command or executable I can use based on the path that the user has provided for me? Well, in our case, if I open up this guy here, you'll see I have Python 3.11 at the very top. In fact, I have Python 3.11 scripts simply because for some reason I want to use pip to install basically applications or libraries into my environment. But for some reason, pip doesn't necessarily become defaulted in my terminal. But now, okay, pip3 then. There we go. You'll notice that right here is pip3, and I'm able to run it because the environmental variables, there, installer app updater, there we go. I gotta give it a moment to go through all of my uh, antivirus stuff. There we go. So pip3 is being registered as a normal command. So I can just type pip3 and it'll run this particular pip3. The reason for that is because, again, script is located or is showing the path of the particular types of applications I can run within my scripts folder. You can do this basically to any folder. If you have applications you want to install and use through your terminal or command prompt, you're essentially going to go to this environmental variable and then just add it to your path. I also have nmap, for instance, ffmpeg. And this is also useful because some applications like AudioCraft will want to use ffmpeg to create music or sounds. So using an AI that will create sounds will be looking for this particular application, ffmpeg. But if it's not added in the environmental variables, that AI script will not be able to run it directly. And you may have it installed in a totally different location. So unless the system knows through these environmental variables where to go, it's not really going to be able to read and see, oh yeah, okay, you have it installed under users, this, and that. So it basically clears up to the computer, hey, these are my main used applications in these folders. So check them when you're basically running commands from the terminal. But remember, it's not just manual commands. It's commands that you would normally use with scripts. And since a lot of people are using scripts nowadays for all kinds of different reasons, it's useful to know that you can modify this directory to serve as a kind of index, indexing what applications you have on your system to basically tell your computer, hey, this is the thing I want to use in this directory. So now in this case, when I type in Python, it's going to use the Python version 3.11. Now I can also change this to 3.12. If I change it to 3.12, I have to save it. I have to close out this terminal and then open up a new one. And that new one will basically now use 3.12. Let me just show you for the reference. So I'm going to change this here. Click OK. Now if I still use this one's technically still running on the 3.11. But if I open up a new one, oh, still 11. I think I got to close the whole thing down. Oh, maybe I have to do a complete restart. Yeah, in one of these cases, sometimes it works automatically, sometimes it works with a restart. Let me try one more time. Okay, there we go, 3.12. I had to actually go through and close the environmental with an OK to fortify those changes. That's it. So consider this. Maybe you have multiple Python versions. Maybe you just want to install one. If you install one, you just download it from here and you do your business. It'll automatically set up the environmental system. And from there, you'll be able to just run Python directly. However, sometimes things can get a little buggy, and even the installer won't let you or just won't give you that particular Python install, even though you've installed it through the executable. So you may still need to go to environmental variables, take a look here, and then add the location of your Python directory. I'm going to go ahead and keep this as 3.11. I play with a lot of AI based, um, see that's still 3.12. And go over here and then Python again and back to 3.11. So I still play with a lot of AI. So the most compatible one version I've found as far as um, that it works with AudioCraft, that works with Invoke AI, that works with Fabric, a bunch of AI-based tools. They all basically work with 3.11. Maybe it's just a kind of lag in development or update, or they're just using the most stable version of the creation of those tools until eventually they decide to update those tools. And that's it. That's it. This is the first thing to really know about when you're modifying, adding, and playing with Python. Now, this doesn't basically end here though. This environmental variable case is very useful when you're installing applications of all types. If you install GCC, a compiler for C that is accessible through the command line, same idea. You install it in the folder you want to keep the files in, and then you just point to that folder through the path in one of these entries that you can add at the bottom. So one very important case is to know how to work with directories, know where your directories are, your files and folders and all that jazz in between. But in the end, being able to diversify the ability of your command prompt will not only help you develop better and essentially just go in here and modify things. Maybe you use Python 12 sometimes, Python 11. Then you'll kind of, yeah, you'll be using this a lot, changing the scripts back and forth. Now, if I do have a particular case where I want both 11 and 12, it's only going to choose the topmost as the directory asset first. If I have Python down here, as in Python 3.12, it's actually never going to register the fact that I want 312, that I'm going to be running 312, because it's going to stop at the very first instance from a top-down hierarchical process. That's going to give you a full kind of top-down, wherever it finds it in one of these directories is where it's going to begin from. So that's it. Make sure you know that where the environmental variables are. It's in your system properties. You can also do a lot of cool things in the system properties that I like to play with. If you want to save some extra virtual memory or scheduling, performance, you can basically turn off any of the extreme animations in here and, simplify your Windows experience, but still, you'll be squeezing out extra performance because sometimes Windows likes to basically overrun us with pretty graphics just to use our graphics card. But in the end, environmental variables, this path and here is where you will enter any directory that has an executable that you want to use in the prompt. Now, it's only not just the prompt, because remember, when you run scripts, you're basically still running that script from a prompt, even if you don't visually see it. It may run in the background, but it still depends on your inclusions in these folders. Sometimes you may not have the required, I guess, applications. Like if I was trying to create music and I did not have FFmpeg, I'd get an error. So I'd have to download the files for FFmpeg, store them in that folder, and then point towards that folder in the environmental variables. And that's going to be a considerable installation. That's all installations really are in the end. They're basically just, hey, where is the script? Where is the exe? And let me know so I can use it in the future. This is the very first step. This is basically just the setup. I wanted to make it known because I know I have a few viewers that are very beginner level and still need to know how to work with the installation and the process. But in the end, if you never installed Python before, you basically download your 3.11 from one of these options down here, like 3.11.10, download, you install it like any other application, double click, run it, and pick uh, your setups, your configurations, your check marks, boxes, whatever, and then that'll fulfill your installation for the very first time. But if you want multiple versions, then you can basically install them and then use environmental variables to manage which one is being used at that moment. Now, the last thing I want to say is that technically, you don't have to use environmental variables if you point to the direct location. So I can go to c/python 311 and then do python.exe version. That'll give me my 311 version. But then if I change this to the directory for 12, that'll give me my 12 version. This is kind of a very manual way to do it. And in most cases, when we're running automated scripts from some other developer, we don't necessarily assume that you've installed it in the root directory. You may have installed it under downloads, under documents, under a lot of different locations. So that's where the environmental variables kind of standardizes everything. It's just going to require one keyword, Python. And whatever is in the top level of that environmental path, it's going to take that particular version or that particular file and run it. So that's setup number one, very useful to know for developers. And I'll tell you now, I've wrestled with this multiple times in the past when I wasn't too aware of this location and these details that I kind of like broke a bunch of my different Pythons because I thought, oh, I have like three or four of them, so I must have messed something up. So I deleted everything and then started from scratch. You don't have to do that. You just got to tell your computer clearly which one of them are your priorities. And that's it. That's it for this one. Super short, but it's a very basic sort of installation process. And then from there, you start programming with Python and the other videos and other live streams that I have available to view if you're learning how to create applications and so on and so forth. But this is the very first step. I wanted to make it clear in its own little space and its own little stream